Meeting of the council. General Manager, could you read the advice concerning the recording of the meeting, please?
Mr. Mayor, this meeting is being recorded in accordance with Council's webcasting of Council's meetings policy. The recording will be archived and made available for viewing at any time on Council's YouTube channel for a minimum period of 12 months. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, if you are in attendance in the public gallery, you should be aware that your presence may be recorded. Your continued attendance means that you agree to being recorded and also that you will abide by the Council's adopted Code of Meeting Practice. The Chairperson or General Manager have the discretion to interrupt the recording of any meeting at any time should it be deemed necessary. This may occur in circumstances where commentary is considered to be misleading, defamatory or inappropriate to be published, or where behaviour breaches the Council's adopted Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors and senior staff are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed, and for the benefit of those viewing online, please ensure you use the microphone when speaking and turn it off when you are finished.
Thank you, Mr. Jam. Could I ask all who are able to please stand for the prayer and acknowledgement of country? Almighty God, give wisdom to those in authority and guide all peoples in the way of righteousness and peace, so that we may share with justice the resources of the earth, work together in trust and seek the common good. Amen. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people and recognise the strength, resilience and the capacity of Aboriginal people in this land. You may all be seated. Gentlemen, any apologies for attendance by audio-visual link?
Mr. Mayor, I have no apologies or requests to attend by audio-visual link.
Thank you, Mr. Jam. We move to item 6.1, confirmation of minutes, extraordinary council meeting 3rd of February 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Underwood, Councillor West. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 6.2, confirmation of minutes, ordinary council meeting 5th of February 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Orban, Councillor Gulliver. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 7.1, declaration of interest. General Manager, do we have any declarations of interest?
Mr. Mayor, I've received no declarations of interest.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We move to item 8.1.1, Nerang Arts Residency, New South Wales Barn Project Update, February 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Underwood, Councillor Orban.
Ask for a suspension of standing orders to go to the Director of Corporate and Financial Services, item 8.3.5, as it has information that holds bearing on the GM's report. Thank you.
Yep. Right. So you're asking for it to be suspended. Do we need a mover and a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, you already have a motion on the table. It was moved and seconded, and accordingly, that matter should be dealt with.
That should be dealt with first. Okay, we'll deal with the matter first. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, here we are. We finally have the report that we've waited so long for, and we've attended many meetings and had many discussions about this project. Imagine a city where our cultural infrastructure is as valued as our sporting fields, where the arts are a driving force for economic growth, tourism and community pride. We are looking at just shy of $9 million investment into our city. Increasingly, councils are called upon to provide more than the 3 Rs. That's roads, rates and rubbish. as has been the subject of recent state and federal parliamentary inquiries around cost shifting and local government impacts. The way in which councils can provide for the public good and grow opportunity for economic stimulus into the future is through the carriage of grant funding. This is our mechanism to support our non-traditional areas of community need. We cannot fund projects like this one or any others without it. This project represents more than bricks and mortar. It embodies our community's imagination, our creative spirit, and it is an opportunity to position Bathurst as a leader in regional arts and cultural development in New South Wales and indeed in Australia. As the report states, it will act as a hub and spoke model, where works initially created at the Newrang at Chifley Dam go on to be showcased in our already existing cultural facilities. And then paying audiences come from Bathurst or as far as Burke or Broken Hill to view these works. And whilst they're here, they stay in our hotels, they shop in our local shops, they visit our galleries and they eat in our restaurants, injecting money into our economy and benefiting us all. Great regional cities don't become great by standing still. They take the opportunities afforded to them. The Newrang Arts Residency is that opportunity. This report shows the project has undergone extensive consultation, independent financial modelling, and government scrutiny. It is not a hastily made decision. It is the result of years of planning, expert input, and strategic alignment with local, state, and national policy. I will say that there's much focus on the site of land at Chifley Dam, but moving it to town ignores the purpose of the facility entirely. By choosing Chifley Dam, it offers several key advantages. This location provides the sense of place, the space, privacy, and flexibility needed for large-scale productions and artist residencies. And it allows us to incorporate existing council assets, the on-site cabins and the council-owned land, with no opportunity cost tied to it. The most important part of embracing this opportunity and accepting the investment into our region is the significant economic boost it will bring. During the 12-month construction phase, it will generate just shy of $18 million in local economic output, add about $6 million in extra value, and create 28 direct jobs along with 40 indirect jobs. Once the facility is operational, it will continue to support the local economy by generating additional output and creating 6 direct jobs and 1 indirect job each year. This project will be a strong economic engine for Bathurst. As this report shows, the project is financially sound. Independent financial modelling predicts a surplus of $44,000 in the first year of operation, which clearly indicates that we are not looking at an operational loss. This council has already spent just over $730,000 on this project, and council is not in a position to hand back this money without further significantly cutting or reducing services to our community. Newrang qualifies for an ongoing multi-year funding from Create New South Wales, and the project meets the guidelines for philanthropic trusts, opening up yet another source of financial support. Further, I have trust in this council to ensure the project build stays within the grant funding allocated. Finally,
Quiet, please. Continue, councillor.
thank you. Finally, I need to make a point about the role of local government and the term public value that is mentioned in the report. I feel it is important to expand on this. Public value is about the long-term benefits that council brings to our community, benefits that go far beyond short-term financial gains. Council deliver essential services like our library, community centres, cultural and sporting facilities, and these investments improve the overall quality of life for all of our residents, even if they don't yield immediate profits. By accepting investments in a project like the one we decide tonight, council not only facilitates infrastructure that supports other initiatives, but it also generates a multiplier effect, attracting events, boosting tourism and supporting our local business. Public value is what makes our city a great place to live.
Would you like extension?
Can Can I? One more minute, Mr. Mayor. I'm nearly done. Public value is what makes our city a great place to live, stay and work. It is a core part of what local government do, and it cannot be overlooked. It is my view that this report is comprehensive. It clearly answers all of the project's objections in recent months, and I trust in the work of the executive in preparation for this meeting and indeed in the decade of work to get us here. I wholeheartedly support the barn in its current location.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Orban.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The barn project. Beggars belief why the
Can
recommendation
I just
to
call
proceed.
a point of order?
Yes.
Sorry. My understanding was there was a motion put forward to change the order of the running order. Was that heard and voted on?
Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was a mover and a seconder that the Mayor called for the motion that was moved. So accordingly, that motion's on the table and needed to be dealt with, and I took the direction of the Mayor, which was mover, seconder, so therefore there's a motion.
Continue, Mr. Councillor Orban.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as I was saying, beggars belief why the recommendation to proceed with this item in this location is even being considered. I'm not against at all the idea of an arts residency project, just not there. 66% of the community don't want it. Yet bugger the majority of ratepayers who will be asked to dip into their wallets to prop it up. Let's build it anyway. Each of my fellow councillors have a decision to make tonight. I asked two questions of the councillors in the room. Are you enjoying your role as a councillor on the Bathurst Regional Council? And do you wish to continue to have a role as a decision maker for the future of this community? If you answered yes to these questions, then I would suggest that you vote no to the building of the barn out at the Ben Chifley Dam site, because as I see, a vote for this proposal could possibly lead to this council being put into administration and your job gone.
Quiet, please.
We all know, whether you want to admit it or not, two fundamental reasons why. One, the cost of the build will far outweigh the grant money pledged by the state and federal governments. Where is the balance coming from? And number two, this development will not or ever, not even according to the reports, you cannot look at that, they will never make a profit and will be yet another financial noose around this council's neck. You only have to look at two other council assets that play in the same space as the proposed barn, namely BMEC and the Art Gallery. These two assets alone have run at an operating loss of over $11 million over the past 5 years. That's ratepayers' money down the gurgler, and this barn proposal will have the same outcome in bleeding the ratepayers for more money. Can we all sit here with hand on heart and say that this is a great proposal? Or do we all have some doubt and trepidation around this project being built 20 kilometres out of town with no benefits to local businesses? So let's knock it on the head here and now and look at a much better alternative, such as the proposal from Tony Lee Scott and the Bathurst Aboriginal Lands Council. Mr. Mayor, may I ask you two questions? First question, did you tell me over the phone last Saturday that if the barn was built and ran at a loss, that you would simply shut it down?
If it's running at a loss.
So there's $9 million of public money would be wasted, and as a gentleman in the gallery said, on a white elephant. Question two for you, Mr. Mayor. Is there going to be an SRV put on this council in the current term?
That we don't know. That's for the council to decide.
That's about it from me. I'll be speaking again later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Orban. Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the past couple of days, councillors and council staff have been bombarded with emails, mostly from those who are against this project. They claim to be speaking for the entire community because the results of the recent survey, the Your Say survey, showed that 66% of the survey respondents were against it. I think those people should be reminded that the total number of respondents to the survey was only 476, and therefore that 66% actually represents about 1% of Bathurst's community. How anyone can claim that they speak for the entire community or the majority of the community based on a negative response from 1% of the community, I'm not sure. What I am sure of is that realistically, councillors only have two options on the table tonight. We either vote for the proposal recommended by the General Manager, or we vote against it and incur a debt of $773,000. I say this because as much as I would love to see an Aboriginal Cultural Centre and Business Academy in Bathurst, and would be willing to support the proposal to the extent of my ability, it isn't possible to create one using this grant money. Apart from the question of whether the funders would approve such a project, which is highly doubtful, the proposal to create an Indigenous land use agreement is deeply flawed. Firstly, these agreements are complex. They are required to be lodged with the National Native Title Tribunal, and they take an average of 1 to 2 years to actually finalise. That time frame is not compatible with the loan conditions and would see council run out of time to take up the grants. Secondly, local Aboriginal land councils can technically claim native title and enter into Indigenous land use agreements, but they have to be representing the traditional owners. In this case, there is no such agreement with the traditional owners, and an Indigenous land use agreement could not proceed until such an agreement was reached. That is not going to happen within the lifetime of these grants. That's not right. Either Councillor Wright does not understand these fundamental flaws with her alternative proposal, or the alternative is she does understand them and hasn't voiced them. Either way, council has only two viable options on the table, and I unequivocally support the GM's recommendation to proceed with the project. This project is going to be a positive game changer for the Bathurst community and for the Central West region as a whole.
Thank you. Question? Excuse me.
Question, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. GM, actually. We had a presentation from a survey company last year, or it could have been 2023. And they actually said to us that 400 plus respondents from a survey is a good representation of the community's feeling.
It's a jam.
In response to that, yes, that's because the survey was undertaken statistically and ensured that there was a complete representation of our population, looking at ages, sex, where they resided within the region. The Your Say one, whilst it's a survey, is not a statistically valid sample. It's a use.
Excuse me.
Because the council requested it to be done. It gives its validity is in that it provides a sentiment of a section of the community, but it is not statistically valid, and therefore the two cannot be compared. That doesn't mean that you don't use either of them. and we certainly have with your say on other items, but you understand the limitations with it. That's why your say is done by council with council staff to collect data, and why when we go and do a statistically valid sample through an external firm, it costs $20,000 to $30,000.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Wright.
So it's interesting how quickly this becomes a fact-free zone when we're talking about things in the cultural realm. Firstly, what I actually said from the beginning, that this facility is going to run at a much larger loss than $10,000. As Warren has touched on, we have facilities that across the board run at over 300, 700, $1 million every year. So I'd like to correct the record on that. But firstly, I want to touch on the fact that the recommendation from council is flawed. We cannot be asked to proceed with the New End project as per the Growing Regions Round 2 application in September 2024, because as of the 17th of the 1st, 2025, Council has actually confirmed there is a funding gap for the project. So advising us to proceed with a project that we know is not fully funded as per the September 2024 plan is inherently flawed, and we should be discussing that. But what the main concerns of the community are, and these are all of the survey results here, all of the written results that council will not publish publicly. And the reason I think that that is the case is because most of the people who are against this project, and overwhelmingly that is because of the location, actually stipulate that they would support it if it was closer to the town, that they want their families, friends, business partners, whatever it is, people in their life to be able to access this freely, and for this to be a community-centric facility, which currently we know it's not out at the dam. Many people that I've spoken to, even its biggest supporters, understand that this is mainly a facility for people from Sydney to come down, for schools from Sydney, for things like that. It is not a community-centric event, a facility. So that is, but most people would support it if it was brought into town. I also just wanted to correct the fact that the modelling is actually not independent for the finances. The original financing for the state grant application was, but council has since done 2 reviews of that financial modelling. It is council's financial modelling that this is based on. So I just wanted to correct the record on that. But mainly for me, what this is about compromise. We have a huge section of the community who are really unhappy with this project going ahead. We have a slightly smaller, statistics, member of the community who want it to go, yeah, we've got that split. But it's about compromise. How can we work with what the part of the community who don't want it out there, who want it in town, who want it to be a bit more about the community, versus the people who want it out there. So it's where you're willing to compromise on something to make it not something that tears our town apart, which I don't think we can really afford at the moment, given what we went through with the go-kart track, but we didn't seem to care about having to throw that $600K down the drain when we killed the go-kart track. There is such a hypocrisy in the way that people think about these issues. It is not art and culture versus sport and motorsport. That is not what our town is about. We are better than that, because we can have both of those things in this town and get on with it. So what is the compromise? The Lands Council have put forward a proposal. We would not have to return the money. During the construction phase, we'd still get that 17.81 million in estimated output. During the operations phase, we'd still get all of those bonuses. The Lands Council is estimating a team of at least 10 mostly Indigenous staff, with a goal to reach 20 by the end of the 3rd year. No ongoing or operational costs for our council. None. No risk. Why is that? Because they want to lease it. So we could actually be guaranteed income to council by way of a commercial lease agreement of the $44,000 that we expect to make anyway, but it's guaranteed and in the bank. Just remember, we literally just got rid of the Kelso Community Hub on a lease because we didn't want those outgoing operational expenses on our books anymore. Yet we're willing to assume something that has huge financial risk attached to it, because when I look at the finances of our other facilities, We've got 10,000, actually it is, planned for all of the maintenance of this entire facility, $10,000, yet every other facility we have 33,000, 47,000, 38,000, 8,000, 21, 118,000, 48,000. So what that means is when you've got $27,000 right now in our general fund, if that maintenance figure alone is wrong, that is it. On paper, we are insolvent. Guys, it's that real.
Like an extension.
So I'm not against this project. What I want to do is pause for a second, give the Lands Council the time of day. Here's their 35-page business plan, all the financials done. They've got a PowerPoint. They want to come in and have a conversation. And funnily enough, the ILUA is actually not a challenge because council own the land. They only own a small portion of it. And it turns out it would be much better putting it on the council-owned land because it fits within correct zoning and the timeline would work a lot better because we don't actually have to enter into that agreement. So look, I think there is no argument against this. Let's have a conversation with the Lands Council about what that looks like. And worst case scenario, all we're going to be doing is approving a barn in a month from now. But I would think let's have a conversation first. That's me.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further discussion? Councillor Cranston.
In November, in November, we asked Council to explore the financial and reputational implications of giving back, of pausing barn indefinitely. We certainly got a report back that stated the options around pausing, but there was no discussion or commentary in that report about the reputational damage to Council. So any commentary that's out in the public at the moment is, in my opinion, purely opinion, and we haven't yet had that conversation. So I'd actually counter this with a financial and reputational damage argument that comes from the other side, and that's the repeated behaviour of not operating within our means. So in 2017, we commenced construction on a railway museum, even though we were already operating at a $13.5 million loss, excluding asset sales and grants. On average, that museum now loses us $700,000 a year. Then, in 2021, we commenced construction on a collections facility. This facility loses nearly $230,000 per year, on average over the last 5 years, with last year's losses being over $370,000. So in my opinion, it's a far greater risk of reputational damage for us to be fiscally irresponsible by continually making these poor decisions. We are spending beyond our means, and that has been the repeated message to me through feedback that I have received. We've also had previous councillors comment in the lead up to elections and in this very room that, and I quote, there's not that big of a return to the council or the community as a profit margin, and I think this needs to be seriously looked at as to whether it does go ahead. Another councillor said, making sound, robust financial decisions into the future. One of the same councillors said, we can't afford to build it or the operational losses that will go with it. Even in the most peachy outlook, the actual functioning of this operations is still recorded as a loss for the first couple of years, which we just can't cop right now. So further to that, the main arguments for Neuran going ahead is that we can't give up this $730,000. I would argue that we do that every day. We shift things to balance the budget. That is a phrase we've heard time and time again. The budget adjustments are routine. The other argument we've heard is, and I'm not quite sure of my feelings around this one, but the argument that the residency is seen as a cultural amenity that could help attract professionals to the area. That's actually I'm going to say it's actually offensive to think that normal members of the community don't value their arts and culture, and that only professionals do. I'm quite sure professionals will prioritise much greater things like schools, healthcare over arts residencies. And I understand that they're state federal issues, but at a local level, we do have an obligation inside that. This project is proceeding against the overwhelming wishes of the community. It's been voted on. It's been councillors that have repeatedly said we are in a position where we want financial responsibility, fiscal responsibility, and this sunk cost fallacy of continuing to spend more money after bad, when we also have a history of budget overruns on cultural projects, and given the negative cost-benefit analysis that we will agree to disagree on, Mr. GM, as we've had this conversation, including and excluding the land value when it suits your argument, i.e. let's include it for a grant application, but let's exclude it for a net present value calculation when there is actually a net loss to society by going ahead with this project. I just, if the decision tonight is go ahead or cancel, then I am absolutely in full support of cancelling this project. Continuing, in my opinion, would be fiscally irresponsible, potentially leading to further financial strain on council and a misallocation of public funds. The sunk costs of the plans and other associated costs, while unfortunate, should not drive our decision that will likely result in greater financial losses and community dissatisfaction. We must prioritise projects that demonstrate clear community benefit and financial viability. That is our duty as elected officials.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Yes, Councillor Packham.
Mr. Mayor, Narung is an investment into the cultural life of New South Wales. It will also provide a significant economic stimulus to our region. Both the former state coalition government and the current Labor federal government believed in this project as a unique facility that would attract artists and performers from around Australia and the world. The project's fully funded. The grant money it's not portable, and it can't be reallocated to a different project. We have a decision to make tonight, and if we decide not to proceed, it means paying back $733,000.
Excuse me.
Which is confirmed in
Point of
your
order.
report, Mr. General Manager. I think the community and this council need to embrace this project without further delay. And Mr. Mayor, we can't seriously be thinking about handing back or rejecting $9 million worth of funding.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors? Question? Any other before that? Sorry.
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
question. From a Western Advocate article, it states, Council confirms there is a funding gap for the project, advising it will review the scope of the project to bring it in line with the amount of grant funding it has received. So I would like to know unequivocally, is the project that we are asked to move tonight, which is submitted to the Growing Regions Round 2 application in September 2024, is that plan currently funded fully or not?
Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming this is the Western Advocate article that spoke around $45,000. As I advised the councillors at the time, that was not a figure from this council. The council's figure has $8,975,000 in grants, and the estimated costing is $8,975,000 as worked out by the quantity surveyor. The response to the press was them asking, and they put the figure up. It was not from council, and I have told council that in an email trail that was not the case. But what I responded, which is a standard position, is that if there is a variation, you look at the scope of the project. And part of the tender process for this will be working on a design and construct process, which will be saying, this is the dollars we've got, go ahead and design it within those dollars. And that's part of the reason why That, can I just say, that is standard practice and is done in many of our construction projects. You do a design and construct and they're aware of the dollars. So all I can say is the 45,000 came from the press, not from staff. But in response that if that was the variation, then the comment was we would look at the scope of the project, noting that 45,000 is what, about 1% or 0.5% of the project.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Yes, Councillor. No, point of order. Yes, Councillor Wright.
So noting the council's, so I got an email from the council, so the question, noting the council's explanation for so currently the sibling architecture costs have already blown out by 21.4% of what was approved for the tender. So that's above the lump sum contract. I would like to know how similar tenders are going to be awarded if the project were processed and how similar cost variations would be managed. So is the term subject to provisional items and variations a blanket clause that will be used on all tenders that council's approves towards this project?
Dan? Point of order.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, my understanding is that is a standard clause when issuing such contracts, as was the case with the tender for sibling architecture that was approved by this council.
Yes, Councillor Wright.
So it would be highly possible then that the councillors are going to approve a tender for this project. There's going to be a clause there saying subject to provisional items and variations, and then those variations and provisions just happen without us really knowing, and before we know it, we've got a budget that's blown without any...
It will be entirely beholden on council to put whatever oversight on this project it wishes to, whether that be in the form of weekly, daily, monthly reporting on the matter. The tender process will go before the full body of council for approval. You will have the opportunity to look at the wording within there and put whatever questions, concerns around it that you wish.
Thank you, Councillor Cranston.
Can I ask a question just around, and this goes to the like the initial project and then tender and so forth. What was the project estimate on the depot meal room, and what was the tendered amount, and what has been the final cost attached to that? Can anyone answer me that?
Mr. General.
Yeah, I'd have to take that on notice because I don't have that. Well, I don't have that data with me, and I think that's a fair enough position.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Cranston.
So would it be in the ballpark that the original tender, and I believe there was a statement to the effect, it's only, and $600,000 or $700,000 comes to mind, it's only $600,000 or $700,000 just build it by a councillor, and then second to that, when the tender came in, it's actually around $1 million. Would that be correct?
Anyone?
As I said, I'd need to take that on notice, and I could come back to you.
Point of order. Councillor Gulliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The barn. I'm looking for a solution. We all know council's financial situation. The discussion for an SRV will be back on the table. We all know that. Have your say results back at 66% against, 33% for. The community prefers the location in the CBD, it seems like. Talking to contractors, builders, the Chifley Dam location would attract a 20% extra cost being out of town as compared to being built in the CBD. Road upgrades and electricity, etc. will still be at council's costs, so we can expect some larger overruns. Thanks to inflation, all costs seem to be blown out, leaving the ratepayer to pick up the shortfall, which we've all seen before. It's not the right economic time. In the business paper, council quotes, "This does not suggest that the project is without any future financial risk to council. I've spoken to many people in the community, including ex-councillors, ex-mayors, members of parliaments, to get more experience and their view to understand grant money. I believe it is a fair and reasonable request to have a discussion to consider the relocation of the barn to Lena Street, which sits between our education facilities with TAFE, the CSU, and along with the Central Tablets Collection Facility, so they can all work together, as we heard earlier. Unfortunately, in today's world, democracy
has been replaced with bureaucracy. Regulation and compliance comes at an enormous cost to everyone, more than any of you in the room can imagine. Finally, quickly, the winners, in my opinion, if Lena Street can happen, are the arts and culture community. Bathurst saving 20% in building costs due to location. Also, we already have available there the services, otherwise they are a huge cost. And for example, we quote now $300,000 per kilometre for roadwork. The businesses, the businesses of the CBD would also benefit, networking with Mount Panorama, CSU, as well as hospitality benefiting. The Indigenous support for Lena Street location has been welcomed. I believe Lena Street deserves consideration as we need to find a compromise for all the community. Thank you everyone for listening to my view.
Thank you, Councillor Gulliver. Any further discussion? Like a right of reply? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. One question.
So the original financially modelling, I've already explained, is now, so the financial modelling that we are going off for this project is council's own. So what I want to understand is, which director actually assumes responsibility for any of these projections if they're incorrect? Like, who would be held accountable for the financial modelling if it's wrong? Is that, like, which director, like, how does that actually work? Who is providing assurances to us that these numbers are 100% correct that we are about to vote on, because they are councils, they're not consultants, they're our figures? Who's going to be held responsible if they're wrong?
General Manager.
The ultimate responsibility for anything is with the General Manager.
Thank you. Council, question.
Sorry, can I just have some clarity? It's a question around this cultural vision document, this Cultural Vision 2036 document, that seems to be overriding so many decisions in the cultural space, which are then in turn resulting to losses and a situation that we're in. Who decided that arts and culture is defined as museums, collections facilities, barn, rather than, in my opinion, Bathurst culture being a much broader encompassing motorsport, outdoor activities, natural landscapes, local food, community experiences, historical pioneering spirit. They're all measures of culture. And yet we've got this Cultural Vision 2036 document that has not been reviewed and was actually the brainchild of a very select group of people that one would argue had a very definite vested interest in the project. So my question, I guess, is who decided that cultural vision document came about and now it's overriding lots of decisions, very, very expensive decisions?
Mr. GM.
The Cultural Strategic Plan is adopted by the council, and so it's the council that adopts what is in that document. It is part of a suite of all of our strategic documents, which all are underpinned or go underneath the community strategic plan. For instance, there's a destination management plan, which is run out of the visitor centre or coordinates it. That one does look at items such as why are we bringing people to the area, but also things like events. So we have a number of plans, and those major strategic documents, like the cultural plan, are adopted by the council.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Wright.
Just in regards to the reallocation thing, because it actually states in council's report that a location change from the current specified location of Chifley Dam can be considered, and as long as it meets deliverables, activities, blah, blah, blah. And the Lands Council is actually talking about putting the exact same facility on a different bit of land, literally just changing the topography of the current architectural plans that we've got. My question is to the Mayor or the Deputy Mayor, both of you guys were looking at an alternate location closer to the CBD. Is it possible that for the sake of transparency in the community actually getting to hear about that site, because obviously there is an appetite amongst councillors for a new location, certainly amongst our leadership team. Could you comment on what that looked like and maybe why it didn't work or what your thoughts are?
Yeah, unfortunately, the one that I looked at was in the floodplain.
So it was in a floodplain, but you are open to the idea of a reallocation?
I'd have to look at it.
So can I raise an amendment to the current recommendation where we can look at it?
Well, it was taken off the table because it was just in a floodplain. We couldn't use it.
So, sorry, my question was, I'll be a bit clearer, sorry.
Yep.
Being that there is an appetite amongst the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to at least consider another location, is it at all possible that we could raise an amendment to have that conversation rather than committing to something tonight?
No, I think we're out of time. Yes, Councillor Underwood, right a reply.
Sorry, point of order.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Wright has requested an amendment. Shouldn't we be asking for if she has a seconder on that?
Well,
Through you, Mr Mayor, if there is an amendment moved and there's a mover and a seconder and it's not a direct negative to what's being proposed, then it is appropriate that the council considers the amendment.
oh, okay. So we can put the
Lovely.
amendment.
I'd like to raise an amendment then for discussion of the council. So A would become facilitate meetings. GM, if you'd like to let me speak, I can speak slowly. Yeah, okay. Of course. So, facilitate meetings between council, the Bathurst Local Aboriginal Lands Council, Create New South Wales, and the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development. How am I going? Okay, development, communications and the arts to discuss the proposal set out in the February 5th letter, comma, whilst, and then I would go on to point B, or what would become point B. Noting council's plan to, and then inverted commas, review the scope of the Nurang Arts Residency Barn project to bring it in line with the amount of grant funding it has received, closed speech marks. I'm not the educated one in the room, so who'd know? Dash, discuss this review, comma, as well as meeting outcomes with the councillors at the next suitable working party. So just to say that a bit clearer so it flows. A would become facilitate meetings between council, the Bathurst Aboriginal Lands Council, Create New South Wales and the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts to discuss the proposal set out in the February 5th letter, whilst B, noting council's plan to review the scope of the Nurang Arts Residency Barn project to bring it in line with the amount of grant funding it has received, discuss this review as well as meeting outcomes with councillors at the next suitable working party.
Need a seconder. Councillor Cranston, seconder. Could you read the motion, Mr. General Manager?
And just check this. That council A, facilitate meetings between council, Black, Create New South Wales and the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts to discuss the proposal set out in the, and I'd suggest Black letter of the Lands Council letter, so it clearly, it's just in the Lands Council letter dated 5th of that. And then it would be whilst noting Council's plan to review the scope of the Nurang Barn project to bring it in line with the grant funds received, and then in brackets, discuss this review as well as meeting outcomes at the next available working party.
You've heard the motion. Any discussion?
I would open it, wouldn't I, if I moved it or not? If I,
Move in a second. Yeah, Councillor Cranston, seconder.
so I
Councillor
can
Wright.
open. Lovely. So just to confirm the Lands Council proposal in terms of the grants, the report states we can discuss a reallocation, it can be considered. The same activities and deliverables as specified in the original funding application just need to be met, and as the Lands Council stipulate in the letter, it's literally the exact same facility they'd like to move there. Should Council be successful in pursuing a variation with the project considered appropriate, equal merit, so on and so forth, there may be considered a project deadline of 2026 December may be extended, as there is a precedent for such an extension within the funding program, so that gives us extra time. And just to note, we talk a lot about the additional costs that would be associated with that. I've got the breakdown of the costs from the 730K that's already been spent, and I can actually only find about 35,000 of those out of the 733 that are specifically DA related. So this is DA lodgements costs, a couple of new site prep situations. And as the Director of Planning did stipulate, because we've built there before with the collections facility, there may even be the opportunity that we have some different plans or inspections of the land that we could potentially use. Not highly likely, but a possibility. So then adding the sibling review for the topography, also noting that currently in the budget for Barn, there's $557,000 there, over $500,000, and 25 days purely for building the access road that would be needed if it was at Ben Chifley Dam. We wouldn't have to spend that. So there is the opportunity for huge budgetary savings by at least just having this conversation. And time savings. We do have to talk about things like zoning, and I thank the Director of Planning and Building Services for taking us on that journey the other day about understanding zoning and LEP and those sort of things. But the understanding is that if we had to change the LEP, even if we didn't, there was a timeline which it could possibly work. And I just say could possibly, also could not possibly. But I want to touch on a little bit about what the Lands Council actually want to do there. So we actually have an Aboriginal commitments strategy that we adopted on the 17th of August 2022, and some takeouts from that, because we had 10 key commitments that we made, and then 32 actions towards achieving reconciliation, supporting cultural protection, and increasing community and stakeholder relationships. So some quotes that I'll take from there. Through the workshops and yarning circles, a major talking point was children and young people needing appropriate access to services that create cultural connections, increase independence, and promote positive relationships. 2/3 of participants spoke about feeling unwelcome at council's facilities. Access to education, recreational activities and programs was highlighted as a very important issue to the Bathurst Aboriginal community. And survey respondents highlighted common areas for improvement, like bringing divided Aboriginal community groups together, increasing identified positions, and engaging local artists and the businesses to expand the community consultation. So as I said, they want the exact same facility, and they will take on a lease, removing all operating costs from council's books. This is a huge, huge win for us that we should consider. They have an incredible amount of experience actually in the cultural space, providing arts experience to children. You should see the Facebook page of all the group activities they do. It's incredible, and it's all driven by the youth of this community.
Can we wind it up?
Yep, I can
Councillor.
wind it up. So above all, the commitment here is to the disadvantaged and disengaged teens and young adults. I really think that we need to have a conversation about this. Like I said, if it doesn't work for any of the reasons, we can still come back here and put Barn up for a vote. But please, can we at least have this conversation, test the merits of it, and then go from there, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a proposal on the table to accept this funding right now, tonight. Let's not delay, divert or discuss it any longer. The economic benefits listed that this investment will bring to Bathurst are very real. We're talking about making a decision to pause $9 million of investment, just shy of $18 million in economic output, 28 direct jobs, 40 indirect jobs. The list goes on and on. The unknowns of this proposal are too great. In fact, the only person who has seen this proposal in its full detail is Councillor Wright. The first time I've seen this letter since it being discussed since October of 2024 was last Wednesday. We are pausing based on potentially, possibly, maybe. It's not good enough for me. Whilst I support the basis of a cultural centre in Bathurst, perhaps it's introduced another way instead of a last-minute recommendation to a project decades in the making. I cannot and will not support your amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Orban.
Just like to congratulate the Tony Lee Scott and the rest of the Aboriginal Lands Council for putting this proposal forward. I just think it would be financially incompetent of us if we don't at least have dialogue on this proposal. And like Councillor Underwood, I'm not ready to put my head on a chopping block and lose lots of money for the ratepayers. So let's have a talk with them.
Thank you, Councillor Cranston.
Is it appropriate to ask for commentary from both our Mayor and Deputy Mayor regarding this topic? Everyone else has spoken to it, but we haven't heard any commentary.
Yeah.
Is that appropriate?
We'll decide on the seat on our voting on it. So you've heard the amendment to the motion. There's no further discussion. I'd like to read it, thanks.
It's an amendment at the moment. If it becomes the motion, you have the right of closure then, so it's put in the amendment for comment. Yeah. The amendment's not the motion yet. Okay, so the amendment I have is that Council A facilitate meetings between Council, the Bathurst Local Aboriginal Land Council, Create New South Wales and Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts to discuss the proposals set out in the Lands Council letter dated the 5th of February 25, whilst B, noting Council's plan to review the scope of the Nurang Barn project to bring it in line with the grant funds received, and then in brackets, discuss this review as well as meeting outcomes at the next available working party.
Okay, we've heard the amendment. I now put the motion. I'll say amendment. I now put the amendment, sorry. All those for? Against? Lost. Now we'll have right of reclose on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One part of our role as councillors that I certainly take very seriously is ensuring opportunities exist for everyone in our community for generations to come. Research from the Australia Institute using ABS estimates shows that for every $1 million in turnover, the arts and entertainment sector creates 9 jobs, compared to just 0.59 jobs in the mining industry. And that's important because mining is a very big industry that is going to be facing the Central West in the next 10 to 20 years with the New South Wales Government's critical minerals strategy. This highlights the role that a thriving arts sector plays in Bathurst now and into the future. Not only does it generate employment opportunities, but it also helps keep our local talent from migrating to other regions, whilst also attracting professionals like doctors, nurses and other skilled workers to our city. Why would they want to come here? Because attracting world-class arts to Bathurst gives an experience usually only readily available in cities. Simply put, a strong arts and entertainment sector is essential for sustaining our community's vibrancy and its future. Beyond the positive economic and financial modelling of this project in its own right, the Nerang facility acts as a hub and spoke model. It is designed to support and amplify our existing cultural assets, attracting world-class productions. We only need to look back at the success of having Elton John play in Carrington Park to think about what sort of things might be attracted to Bathurst. This is not a rehearsal space, it's a creative incubator where local, national and international talent can create, collaborate and then show their works in our city, pulling in economic stimulus from visitors far beyond Bathurst. It is also a multi-use space that enables our council to pivot should it need, allowing its use in education and even for private use such as corporate retreats, family reunions or even weddings. It's not just limited to the arts. But on the arts, I'd like to ask my councillors some questions. These are rhetorical questions, of course. Why shouldn't Bathurst have these cultural experiences on our doorstep? Why is it that we, as a regional community, are often left out, having to travel for the experiences that enrich the lives of people living in the cities? Why must Bathurst be seen as just a regional city in terms of cultural access, when our local talent and community are bursting at the seams to create? Why should our community miss out on the health benefits, inspiration, connectivity and joy that the arts naturally brings? Why would we deny our community and children the opportunity to learn and grow through exposure to creative experiences without leaving town? Why are the creative arts viewed as a luxury rather than a basic right for every Bathurst resident, similar to how we value sport in this city? And why should Bathurst forgo nearly $9 million in investment simply because of mistrust and scepticism of the work that this council has done for over a decade? The state and federal governments recognise the need for more accessible creative arts in regional areas. That's very evident through the bipartisan approach of approving the funding, proving that our community deserves to interact with the creativity typically reserved for metro areas. This project gives us the very real opportunity to transform Bathurst into a cultural hub and grow Bathurst's future. Let's move forward, welcome some long-term vision and accept the gift that is this project.
Thank you, Councillor.
Point of order.
Right.
When we go to a vote, can I ensure that a division is recorded? Is that appropriate? Request a division. Yep.
Okay, I will now put the motion and call for a division. All those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.1.2, Community Engagement Strategy. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Fry. Councillor Packham. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor, now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.1.3, submissions to Office of Local Government, consultation of reforms to council meeting practices. Councillor, have a move and a seconder. Councillor Fry, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Fry.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'm a bit croaky this evening, but just wanted to probably pick up on something that we heard in the crowd from a good supporter of mine, Kent McNabb, his wife Di. She did make a point about a submission in the report about taking out the ability to provide hard copies of council papers. Now, I have mine digitally, but that's just me. I do think we should be giving the ability to have a hard copy to residents if they request. Can I just ask the General Manager, I think you cited that we print 10 copies, but how many of those get picked up?
Mr. Mayor, we allocate all of those out. And could I just say, we do have the capability of where people say they want to be on a regular collect up list, they can do that as well.
Okay, thanks. Well, just in line with the request from the forum this evening, I think it's probably appropriate, if I have the support of the councillors, to take out the paragraph that supports a proposed alteration of clause 3.24, which removes the ability to actually have those or requirement to produce hard copy agendas. I just feel like we don't want to reduce that transparency of council papers and provide them in every format we can. So if you can articulate some kind of amendment to that effect, Mr. General Manager, please.
Yeah, we got that, Mr. General Manager? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, on the third page of the report, could I just say that that you have that council authorise the general manager to make the submission in accordance with the report with the removal of 11B. Yeah.
You're right with that, Councillor Gulliver? Packham. Correct. Any further discussion? Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I support the recommendations contained in this submission, I don't think they go far enough. I propose that Council also makes a submission in relation to any changes to the authority of the Mayor, and with due deference to you, Mr. Mayor, this is not anything to do with you. It's not aimed at our current Mayor in any way, but it is a recognition that not all mayors act with honesty and integrity. The Minister seems to think that all mayors are deserving of the utmost respect and that all mayors will act at all times in ways deserving of that respect. We in Bathurst know only too well that this is not the case. We have experienced the ignominy of having a sitting mayor being found guilty of misconduct in public office by a jury for helping to blackmail a fellow councillor in 2020. The judge said the offence undermined the undermined the institution of government, and that the defendant had failed miserably in maintaining the standards of the office. Given this experience, I think that Bathurst Regional Council is very well placed to make representations to the Office of Local Government against any recommendation that increases the authority of mayors beyond that which they already have, and especially in relation to those that decrease the authority of the General Manager as a result. I suggest there needs to be a balance between these two roles, and that balance is achieved by the current Code of Meeting Practice. I therefore request that the General Manager consider adding to the submission being made by BRC to object to those clauses which arbitrarily increase the power and authority of the Mayor, especially when it's to the detriment of the power and authority of the General Manager. Now, I haven't gone through and itemised all those, so I don't know how practical that is. To put those in before the deadline, but I would really like it to be taken seriously. I think the Minister has created an imbalance here, which is based in his view that all mayors act in the way that he would act, you know, and they don't. So I think the balance needs to be maintained between the power of the two roles. Thank you.
Councillor West. Can you put that? Yep. One in your shorthand. Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Mayor,
Amendment.
I've worked on that the motion was moved by Councillor Fry and Councillor Underwood, and that they're happy with the proposed changes, but I'll just work on the Council authorise the General Manager to make the submission in accordance with the report with the following changes. A, with the removal of item 11B, other matters. B, Council does not agree with any proposed increases to the power of the Mayor in respect of the Code of Meeting Practice. And C, Council does not agree with any proposed reductions in the power of the GM in respect of the Code of Meeting Practice.
Thank you, Mr. GM.
Yeah, that's
Councillor
fine.
Fry,
Throw it in
that's
there. I just think the Minister is going to do what he wants in the end anyway. I just want to make sure Di can get a hard copy, all right?
Okay, Councillor. And that right with you, Councillor Underwood? All fine. We don't have to put it to a motion, do we? We have to put it to a vote.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there was one item raised by Mr Chiming, and that was to do with the requirement for councillors to stand in the guidelines, and he felt it needs to allow for disabilities and or illness. So,
We'll put that as well.
Apologies, Mr. Triming, if we could get something amended to that. I think that's just a matter of semantics, but it definitely needs to be cleared up. Thank you.
Okay, heard the amendment? No further discussion? Yeah. Mr. Chimings. Okay, thank you, Mr. Gentleman.
Mr Chiming, hoping I don't transgress over here. I was going to suggest that with the following changes, and D, that the code allow for councillors not to stand where factors such as illness or disabilities preclude this happening.
All good? Good, Councillor Fry, Councillor Underwood? Okay, we heard the amendment. I now put, excuse me, now put the motion. All those for? Against? Carried. Move to Director of Environment and Planning and Building Services Report, item 8.2.1, section 4.15 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. Councillors Gulliver, move and a seconder. Councillor Gulliver, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor, now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.2.2, General Report. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor West, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor, now put the motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cranston.
Sorry, we are up to 8.3.1, aren't we?
Oh, 2.2.
Sorry.
Okay. All good? Okay, item 8.2.2. I now put the motion. All those for? Against? Carried. Move to Director Corporate Service and Finances Report, item 8.3.1. Councillor can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Cranston, Councillor Packham. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Cranston.
Can I just thank the Director of Corporate Services just for that additional detail in this report, which gives a better indication of our restricted cash position. And I also just want to confirm that there's a commentary around the monthly movements which says the sewer fund reflects funds used for operations and capital. Note loan repayments from land development are up to date. What exactly, can you just clarify what that means for clarity?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. So in relation to the sewer fund in isolation, so the reduction in sewer funds is basically because of the operations of the sewer fund itself. So it's actually the works, the day-to-day treatment of sewerage and the upkeep of the sewer scheme. So that's basically when it's talking around the spending of funds within the sewer fund for operate. It's to do with sewer fund particular items. And in relation to the repayments from general fund back to the sewer fund, so the loan repayments we've had to have made 2 by this point in time, and they currently have been made.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.3.2, monthly review, 2024-2028 delivery plan and operational plan, 2024-2025. Councillor can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Packham, Councillor Fry. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor, now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.3.3, sundry section 356 donations, Bathurst Memorial Entertainment Centre, community use subsidies and Mount Panorama fee subsidies. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Fry, Councillor Gulliver. Councillors, any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.3.4, power of attorney. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor West, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor, now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.3.5, quarterly budget review statement, December 2024. Councillors, can I have a move and a second? Councillor Fry, Councillor West. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Wright.
So I just want to confirm, so council continues to experience difficult staff recruitment. So council has been reviewing costs and services for many years to reduce costs and or increase income to address sustainability issues, particularly for the general fund. So just for the room, that would be the fund that does fund barn if it was to run at a loss. Further options to address council sustainability. So then we go on to explain, so council's unrestricted cash position is currently $27,000 and only expected to be $134 at the end of the year. I think they're just things, again, if you haven't read the papers, that people should know. But what I have a question about, my first question is the $20,000 for the Chifley Dam studies. What is that for?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that question on notice. I'm not too sure myself. I suspect that would be funded from the water fund if it's to do with Chifley Dam, because it's the nature, it would be a water study and something along those lines, but I'm only surmising at that. I'm happy to take that on notice and I'll come back.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillor Wright.
Just kept going further on through to, let me get the page for you, Director. So this is the budget review for quarter ended, hang on, let me give you a page, it's probably more helpful. So 394, this is where we talk about New South Wales local government industry performer indicators. So operating performance ratio, I see a lot of, oh wait, sorry. So this is page 394 of 518.
Page number
Attachment 8.3.5.1. Oh yeah, and then at the bottom of the page, so Bathurst Region, so key performance indicators B, budget review. So the local government industry key performance indicators. Page 394 of the entire paper. Yeah. So with the building and infrastructure renewals ratio, can you, it's got a little description at the bottom, but can you shed a bit more light on what this one means around our asset and infrastructure renewal? Because I just don't remember, and there's like lots of reds there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the philosophy behind asset renewal versus depreciation is the benchmark is 100%. So basically, if you are 100% renewing your assets every year, they're not depreciating. So that's the mindset. So the dream is that you'll be able to basically reduce your depreciation down to zero because you're spending enough money on renewal to cover that entire cost. And so that's why the benchmark is set as 100%. So this particular council, in round dollars, as it stands at present point in time, we're spending or anticipating to spend $6.5 million on asset renewals across all funds, whereas our annual depreciation charge is $14.3 million. So at the moment, we're below the 100% benchmark, hence why the number is red.
Yes, Mr. Councillor Wright.
So it might not be that ratio then based on that. Is that the one that indicates whether we're keeping up with the ability of council to keep up with our current asset maintenance requirements? Is that one, or is it a different one on that page?
It's actually the next page, the infrastructure backlog ratio. And so that basically tells you, in theory, actually, no, I stand corrected. It's actually the one below it, the asset maintenance ratio. Basically, it identifies how much we are actually spending in asset maintenance, as opposed to what our asset management plans say that we should be spending in maintenance. And so that shortfall, once again, it should be greater than 100%, as a numerator denominator, the same number. We're presenting red numbers at the moment, as in year to date, because we are below that 100% indicator. Our projections, though, based on budget, is that we will actually exceed that target.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Just looking at those two questions about the 20,000 you raised, Councillor Wright, with respect to water, they are the first 20,000 is for dam studies and plans for Chifley Dam. So there's continual plans being done. And the other 20,000 is to fund dam break study emergency plans for Wimbendale Dam. So they dam items. It's on page 331 of the 400 odd pages that you had to read.
Councillor Cranston.
One of the challenges for me with this report is the variances that we see come up. And the example of that I'll use is the March quarter of 2024. And in that, what we were projecting is, like, if we annualise the wages, we were projecting $40 million worth of wages when our budget was actually $34 million, and I'm using very round figures here. There was questions at the time about why that was, and from memory, the answer was, well, we haven't capitalised some of the wages yet. Once we did obviously capitalise some of the wages, well, I'm assuming we did, the actual wages bill for 2024 year came in at $38 million. So still a significant variance over budget. Tied into that, we also had even interest income that was projected to be 1.6 million, but the actual was 4.3 million. Like, there's significant variations in multiple line items, and I'm just wondering how we get to a situation where we've got that 6 weeks out from an end of year, and where's the value in these reports and the accuracy attached to them? Is there ways we can improve them?
Mr. Director.
Through Mr Mayor, there's always ways we can improve, I guess. And I think you would notice that there's been improvements in the current report that you're seeing before you tonight, in the sense that we are tracking quite well, actually on par with, theoretically we're halfway through the year, so you'd expect to see half income received, half the expenditure incurring. So by and large, we're predominantly there. There is a variation, no bad choice of words, there is a difference in the materials and contracts line, and that's largely because our spend is lumpy. It's not the same every month all the way through the year, otherwise it would bang on. But apart from that, most of our other indicators are sort of within a plus or minus 10% tolerance, which is an acceptable level of the industry and our audit office in that sort of space. So we are improving our monitoring and management of that, and that's picking up on the feedback of previous times this report's come to this council, but also from previous councils as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cranston.
So we've still got a projected annual wages bill that will come in $2.3 million over what the budget is. Are we still not capitalising, or is there option to capitalise at least quarterly? Because to me, that's still a $2.3 million variance that we don't know whether it's going to hit or not. It's a significant variance when you're talking the amount of money that we have in unrestricted reserves to blow that budget by $2.3 million.
Mr. Director.
Through Mr Mayor, we're actually okay with that number at this point in time, once again, because our wages spend is lumpy, and that's largely because in the lead up through summer, or spring and summer, is our parks and garden staff generally work overtime to keep on top of what they can. So we have a higher than normal overtime expend budget. I'm not saying it's $2 million in overtime, but it's higher than normal in that sort of space. And then when you project that out on the assumption that overtime is to be annualised over the year, yes, we will blow our budget. But our intention is that overtime will now come to a rest as we sort of come out of the warmer months into winter. And so that'll scale back. Similarly, with our car races, our biggest car race, the Bathurst 1000, is the biggest drain on our wages and wage resources. Obviously, that's now done and dusted. And so that's also having an adverse effect on the smoothness, if I can use that terminology loosely, of our wages spent throughout the year. So we are anticipating of being within budget, actually, at this point in time for our wages.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council, now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.3.6, introduction of declared dam safety levy from 1st of July 2025. Council can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Cranston, Councillor Packham. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Councillors, we now move to the Director of Engineering Service report. 8.4.1, Council's Policy Review, Engineering Services. Councillors can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Fry, Councillor Gulliver. Councillors, any discussion? If no discussion, I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8 point, Director of Culture and Community Services report, item 8.5.1, Aboriginal Commitment Strategy Update, August 2024, January 2025. Councillor can have a move and a seconder. Councillor Fry, Councillor Wright. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Underwood.
It's a question, Mr. Mayor. Is there an update in regards to the memorial garden? It's listed here that it meets the action of continuing to implement the Aboriginal Heritage Interpretation Strategy. I know that there was a vote to look at this in regards to when we were carryover votes, and I just want to know if there's an update in regards to this matter.
Yeah, Mr. Acting Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's no update on that project. There's been no action taken since that last meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
On page 482 of the total document, this could be an error, I'm not sure. It says ongoing consultation with recognised Aboriginal parties in relation to site card at Walu Mount Panorama. Is that an error or is that referring to a current site card?
What page, Councillor?
So 482 of 5, so it's under
That'd be
community and stakeholder relationships.
We sure got it there, haven't we? I think it's
So
existing.
the ongoing consultation with recognised parties is the action.
That'd be an existing one. Be an existing one. Isn't it?
Hard copy, it's page 71.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I've got the attachments.
Okay.
So so my question was, is that ongoing consultation with recognised Aboriginal parties in relation to site card at Walu Mount Panorama, is that current? Because that sounds current, or is it an error and referring to the
that
old
is-
one?
No, that is the same one that we talked about a
Current.
month ago. It's still current.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Councillor, I now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Move to item 8.5.2, Museums Bathurst Ratepayer Vouchers 6-month review. Councillors can have a move and a second. Councillor Fry, Councillor Cranston. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, so just with this one, is it at all possible? So we're talking here about updated point of sale and stuff like that. And I mean, obviously we're giving away free tickets to our museums, which is money. And all I'm thinking is that there seems to be some ambiguity around how we're actually tracking it and, you know, what's the value and are these people local or from out of town, stuff like that. And I think back to often when you go shopping, they'll have it come up on it'll be on the FPOS mostly, but I'm sure that Square and different apps have it now, where you can like fill out a little survey or, you know, often it'll be like, how happy were you with your shop today? Like, if we're going to be giving away free stuff and we want to be able to track the viability and the value that's delivering, is there some way that we can be actually tracking that more comprehensively if we're doing it for a year?
Mr. Acting Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, as the report says, we are tracking it and we are getting meaningful data back on this. It does identify that we've got a very ageing point of sale system across all our museums, which we did know. That does allow us to capture the data nonetheless, but at times, particularly of peak visitation, it's very hard to capture that accurate data without impacting on customer service. So it was known, but the scale of it has been brought to the fore through this process. That said, we are still getting meaningful data, and at the conclusion of 12 months, when we can look back over the last 5 years' visitation and even out the peaks and troughs, we'll certainly get a much better picture of what impact these vouchers are having, whether or not they are attracting additional visitors or whether or not we are actually selling ourselves short by giving away something that people would have paid for otherwise.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I guess it just takes me back to when I first did the freedom of information around memberships, and I got that data and I was tracking it all. And so we've got our memberships and we've got our casual visits. And obviously, memberships are a really good indicator amongst our locals of repeat visit, right? Because I see the value that I want to go back heaps of times, so I'm going to buy an annual pass, you know, single family, whatever that looks like. And currently it's like 0.82% of our population have a membership to any of our museums. That's a single, a family, a child, whatever. But obviously that doesn't capture our full local turnout for just casual visits. And so yeah, perhaps there's some discussions that could have around just capture, so even just not on the free ones, capturing more robust data that we can even see that difference between local visitation casually versus the memberships and stuff like that. I think there's just some better data but maybe I didn't get given all of the data that was available at the time. I'm not sure, but I just feel like we could be reporting better on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, Acting Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just briefly, we can always have better data. We can never have enough. We do have reasonably good statistics on our local versus our outside of 2795 visitation to all museums. Obviously, it could be refined. This is obviously a particular case study. Our findings to date indicate that obviously uptake is high, and it would appear that people are bringing the 10% vouchers in as well. But you're right, we do want to get a better understanding of exactly what the impact is.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Underwood.
Good point that Councillor Wright makes. It says here the replacement will be reliant on finding the associated costs for the new system within existing budgets. That's for a point of sale system that could potentially do these things that we're talking about. Have we ever costed that? Do we know what an estimate might be?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have. The last time we did that was a couple of years ago, and I cannot quote the figure to you, but it was considerable. We would be looking at a system that would work across all museums as well as the Visitor Information Centre, so we've got standardised data. From memory, it was somewhere around 20 to 25,000 initial setup costs. But I'll take that on notice and provide it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Move to reports of other committees. Item 9.1, Policy Committee Report, 4th of December 2024. Councillor can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor West, Councillor Underwood. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor now put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Move to item 9.2, Traffic Committee Report, 4th of February 2025. Councillors can have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Gulliver, Councillor Packham. Councillors, any discussion? Councillor now put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Move to item 10, notice of motion. Item 10.1, Councillor S. Wright, Financial Responsibilities Investigation, Relocation of Barn Narang Facility. Councillor, you still want to move that motion? Seeing we've... Yep, I mover and seconder. Councillor Cranston, Councillor Wright. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, so obviously with respect to what's happened earlier in the meeting, I still don't think that negates the possibility of just having a meeting, being that we've got a group who, even if it's not for the reallocation, but it's purely for a conversation around you guys have got a concept and a business plan and an idea. How can council work with you to support you on that vision? So look, I actually would still like to have a meeting, even if it's not with direct respect to that facility. And I also just want to flag, because it was brought up tonight, outrage that we only received this notification Wednesday last week. I had been in conversations with most councillors actually in depth about it. And yes, there was a letter sent in October 2024, which was just very top level, hey, can we have a chat? I actually told the Lands Council to hang on, we've got to see the result of this federal funding and bring a bigger vision to me of what that looks like. And I think it was actually probably off the back of the success and the feel-good story with the Kelso Community Hub that probably warranted the very last-minute final letter of expression. So look, I want to continue to advocate for a group in the community that I think bring a lot of value to this community and have a great idea. And I think council should be jumping at the opportunity to have that conversation in whatever form it looks like. So obviously this would require an amendment though. So
yeah.
Are you happy for me to raise something or?
Councillor Wright, could I just suggest that we leave A in And then B, facilitate meetings between council and the Bathurst Local Aboriginal Land Council to discuss possible options for an Aboriginal cultural centre.
Well, look, you can use that term. Obviously, it's a lot more than that. It's not just a cultural centre, but it's, I guess, maybe even if it's just to discuss the what's outlined in the letter from February the 5th, would that be just a broader term to discuss whatever you want? I guess it results in the same outcome.
Well, we could probably do that. How about we put down to discuss possible options for an Aboriginal cultural centre and the proposal contained within. The trouble is, if I go with the proposal that's contained within the letter, that's in direct contrast to. I think it's better off to discuss possible options for an Aboriginal cultural centre and other facilities.
Sure.
Would that do it? And then that way, for the councillors, that then doesn't tie us into a direct conflict with the report that was passed earlier on.
Sure.
Okay. So can we read that out again, please, Dave?
Yep.
So with an amendment? And that's right.
If Councillor Wright and Councillor Cranston, that we don't need to do it as an amendment.
Righto.
So that Council acknowledge receipt of the letter from the Bathurst Local Aboriginal Land Council, attachment 1, dated the 5th of February 2025, and B, facilitate meetings between Council and the Bathurst Local Aboriginal Land Council to discuss the possible options for an Aboriginal cultural centre and other facilities in Bathurst.
Thank you. Right, both councillors? Okay. You right? Any discussion? Councillor Fry?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the council for that amendment. I think it makes good sense. I think if we have a group, any idea is a good idea, and we should be willing to hear it as a council. An audience in front of this council with any proposal. Of course, keeping intellectual property safe is anybody's responsibility, but for them to deliver that in person, I think would be a great result for this council. We long haven't had a Aboriginal cultural facility of this rapport or this standard that's being discussed, and concepts can change. So I'd be really keen to discuss with the LALC, and I'd like to thank the LALC and Councillor Wright for bringing this to the attention of the council, and I'd really look forward to discussions if this gets the support of the majority of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Any other discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just also would probably note that the traditional owners are also currently looking at grant funding to do some form of cultural facility as well. So, but that doesn't mean you don't have more than one, but it's just to let you know that they're in that space as well.
Okay, no further discussion? I now put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Council is now resolving the Confidential Committee of the Whole to deal with confidential reports, resolving the Confidential Committee of the Whole, cease recording of council meeting. Council, we are now due to go into confidential committee. Councillors can have a mover and a second to go into confidential meeting with council. Yes, now. Yeah. Yeah, we need a mover and a second. Yeah. Councillor Wright. Councillor Underwood. Yeah. Are there any members of the public and press who wish to make representation to the council as to whether the matter should or should not be dealt with in a confidential committee? As there are no representations on... Oh, Councillor Wright, sorry. Yeah.
Busy reading the reason for confidentiality.
Yeah.
So with the first item, obviously respecting people are still in the room, maybe my understanding of what this is...
Yeah, you just... Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything about...
No, they're right. You're right, Councillor.
Sorry. So why is this in the confidential? It says, litigation, but isn't it just about prices that we pay for? I'm a bit confused about why this.
Look, it's to do with tendering and market pricing for our electricity. We do this with the JO, but we also get the legal advice from the relevant firms. And their position, and I understand because we're discussing tenders, and it's not only just this council, it's all the councils of the joint organisation. It's handled confidentially. There will be a resolution that the recommendation, which is quite detailed, if you agree with it, at least it's not 3 or 4 of them like last time, that will go out into and become public. So if it's adopted, but yeah.
Okay, councillor. As there's no representation, I now put the motion to go into confidential committee. All those in favour? Carried. Okay, we move to adopt report of the Committee of the Whole. Item 12.2, adopt report of the Committee of the Whole. Councillors, can I move in a seconder to adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole? Yep. Councillors? Councillor Underwood, Councillor West. Mr. GM.
Mr Mayor, Council just managed confidential session and the following recommendations have been referred to the Council. Item 11.1.1, General Manager's Report, Electricity Procurement for Small Market Sites. The Council A, note the report on electricity procurement for small market sites. B, participate in the regional procurement process facilitated by Central New South Wales Joint Organisation for the supply of electricity for small market sites. C, note the extreme volatility of the energy market currently being experienced. D, continue to purchase 100% of renewable energy for each site in line with Council's adopted ERP targets and actions. E, note the short time frame for acceptance of offers for the supply of electricity. F, resolve that because of the extenuating circumstances set out in the report, a satisfactory result would not be achieved by inviting tenders for the aggregated procurement of electricity for small market sites, which are due to commence on 1 July 2025, and therefore procurement will be run as a request for proposals, RFP. G, note that the reasons for the decision of the Council in Resolution F are as follows. 1, the services with respect to which the tender relates can only be provided by energy retailers. 2, Council has received expert advice that due to the nature of the relevant market, offers from those retailers which will be made in response to their request for tender will only be open for acceptance for a period of 1 to 2 weeks. 3, even if the tender period was shortened to 7 days as permitted under the regulations, some if not all of the relevant tenders would expire prior to Council being able to undertake an assessment of tenders, report the matter to Council and resolve to accept or reject any tenders. 4, this would result in Council either having no valid tenders which it is able to accept, or it would not be able to consider for acceptance all of the tenders lodged in response to the request for tender. 5, this would not be a satisfactory result for Council. H, delegate the determination, acceptance or rejection of proposals on behalf of Council to the General Manager. I, delegate the execution of the contract for the supply of electricity for small sites to the General Manager. J, receive a report on conclusion of the process detailing the outcome. And K, advise Central New South Wales Joint Organisation of its decisions. Item 11.2.1, Director of Corporate Services and Finance, request for financial hardship assistance, Everton Road, that Council act in accordance with the recommendation as detailed in the report. 11.2.2, Hampton Park Estate lot sale, that Council A, accepts the offer for the sale of lots 2 and 3 as detailed in the report, and B, delegates authority to the General Manager to execute all documents associated with this sale. Then Director of Engineering Services report 11.3.1, tender 36.00842 Bathurst Sewer System Flow Survey. The Council accepts the tender from Trenchless Renewals Consulting, TRC, for the flow monitoring survey in the amount of $320,258.80, inclusive of GST.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You heard the adoption of the report. Councillors, any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. Those for? Against? Carried. Council, I now declare the meeting closed at